Imagine standing in a Taco Bell with your young son, counting the change in your pocket. You can afford 2 tacos for him, nothing for yourself. You've worked since you were 15. You've always hustled, and somehow you've still ended up here. At some point or another, you've probably heard yourself asking, how did I get here? I've done everything right, so why does it feel like the ground can disappear at any moment? My guest today, Heather Nelson, has lived through that moment. She walked away from her first marriage with almost nothing, 2 kids, a room in her dad's house, and a hustle mentality that refused to quit. She rebuilt. Then she quit a job without another lined up, hit rock bottom again, and built 2 businesses from scratch. And then her husband was injured and couldn't work for 2 years. She carried it all. Today, Heather runs the Connection Hive, a hospitality consulting firm in Sonoma County. She co-owns a labor company. She hosts the podcast Life Conversations with a Twist and runs women's empowerment retreats. She is a wife, mother of 4, and recent surrogate. This is a conversation about hustle, resilience, financial rock bottom, and what it really means to feel proud of where you've landed. Listen in.
Welcome to Making Change with Your Money, a podcast that highlights the stories and strategies of women who experienced a big life transition and overcame challenges as they redefined financial success for themselves. Now here's your host, certified financial planner, Laura Rotter. Welcome, Heather, to the Making Change with Your Money podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'll start as I always do with the question, Heather, what was money like in your family growing up?
Oh, I love having this conversation. I know I had you on my podcast and I just love talking about money. And I'm so intrigued by the conversation of how people think of it, where it comes from. I know it comes up a lot from our childhood. So great question to answer to start. So when I think back about that question, I grew up, I have a sister who's 5 years younger than me. And then I have obviously my parents were together. My dad was definitely the working, my mom did work a little bit, but definitely my dad was the hustler. He worked in construction and he lived and breathed working. I mean, we never took vacations together. It was because he loved working, which is definitely where my work ethic comes from, I believe. It's from him. And my mom worked, but my mom was like a banker. She worked here and there. And then as my kid or me and my sister were growing up, she was kind of more home for us. So we never lived extravagantly. We never, like I said, we never really went on vacations. We lived in the suburbs, in our town, and we didn't splurge a lot of money. We didn't buy brand name things. We lived very basic in my eyes of, now that I have a little bit more idea around money and kind of where everyone sits now, definitely we lived very bare minimal. We didn't even really go out to eat very much. When I think back, we went I feel like we went out to fast food a lot. So I wouldn't say we were a rich class, but we got by.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people I speak with, right? Which is you had enough. You're certainly not describing a childhood of scarcity, but it wasn't over the top. There wasn't a lot of spending that was very noticeable. I'm wondering how that affected you. Was there a sense of that you didn't even pay attention to money, or that you wanted things to be different when you grew up?
It's interesting. And I think you and I talked about this a little bit on when you were on my podcast. I think I grew up with the work ethic of you had to, or the thought around money is you had to work for it, So I remember when I could work, which was 15 years old, I worked.
Wow.
I had a job at a little taqueria. And then ever since then, I've always had to have multiple jobs. Like making money was important to me, and not because I didn't have it, but I knew that I had to work hard for it. It wasn't just coming to me. My parents didn't just, take care of me, send me to college, anything like that. I did go to the JC, like our local junior college. And my grandma, instead of my grandma giving us gifts, she always put money into our account. So she like had a little savings account that she could, for our birthdays and holidays, she would put money in it. So when we did graduate, my sister and I, we got to be able to use that money. And so I just used it to go to the JC. So I didn't go away for college, move away or anything like that. So again, I felt like we lived very minimalist, but I always had that mindset that if you want money, you've got to work for it. And so I did. And I still am hustling to this day.
I love that word. You used it to describe your father's work ethic, and it's got a feeling of movement and energy to it.
Yeah.
So I really like saying that versus maybe some heavier, like pushing oriented, like striving, but like hustling.
Yeah. And it was like fun jobs. Like I never thought working was annoyance. I always thought it was fun. And I'm like, what other little, what other jobs can I get, or what can I get my hands into, or what can I learn? I mean, I've done all kinds of random jobs, from like working in retail. I worked for bail bonds, like doing, like I mailed like invoices to people, and I've kind of done everything. I worked at a little taqueria. I worked at a restaurant. And so I really was kind of in this space of wanting to learn what else was out there, but also made money. And no one bought me a car. Mm-hmm. Most people, like parents buy you a car. No one bought me a car. I worked to save money to buy my car. So I've always, again, I think everything that I have now, I feel very proud of, because it's stuff that I've worked for and nobody, just gave it to me.
Thank you. I can hear that in your voice, Heather, this sense. First of all, there clearly was a message communicated by your family, a very strong work ethic, and there is a pride involved in knowing that you've had the energy and had the drive and the determination to accomplish what you set your mind to.
Yeah. And it's very interesting now when I sit where I'm at now in my life. Like I look at my dad, who is now retired, but still works. Like he's still building. Like, unfortunately, he lost his house in one of our California fires. And so they're rebuilding, but like he's doing it himself, like he could pay someone to do it, but like he takes value and, pride into building it himself. So they have money, but they buy the things that they want, but obviously not, living in an extravagant house or, so I think his mindset is still similar. My mom, however, she lives near me, and she's very, I would say very frugal. Like she works, but she doesn't spend out of her means, like what comes in is exactly for bills. She, I think, has a very different mindset of, I have what I have and I'm good with it. I don't need to find another job, or I don't need to have a second job to make more money. I think she's just content with what she has, and it's very, minimal, and she's okay with that. So where her and I struggle a lot is she's like, you spend your money on crazy things, like you buy expensive cars now, or, you're constantly going on vacation. And it's so interesting because my mindset has changed. But again, it comes from, I've had to work so hard for it that I'm okay spending the money on a nice car or taking my kids on vacation, or, so it's interesting how like our money, I guess, mindset is so different, even though they're the ones who raised me.
Yes, it is. And I was actually talking about this with a group yesterday when we were going into money scripts, right? The stories, as you and I said, that you grew up with, and that we can even have a similar money script, but where we are in the continuum. So if someone is money vigilant is one of the scripts, which is what you're describing to a certain extent. This is what's coming in, this is what's going out. But you could take it to an extreme, to a sense of like real frugality, or you can be what you're describing, I think, Heather, about yourself, which is you're very aware of your money and you want to spend a portion of it towards experiences. That's why you earn the money. Money is meant to be a flow and not just something that we keep like, squirrels with acorns and keep on the side and, just admire it and don't touch it. So yeah, thanks so much for describing that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting now that I'm married. So I've been divorced and remarried. And so me and my ex-husband definitely had a similar mindset of money. Like we were okay spending money on this, the same things. Like there was never any kind of friction. But my current husband, he grew up very, kind of poor. And so he didn't have a lot of money. So when he buys things, like he really wants to take care of it. Like I'm like, oh, we'll just buy another one, and he's like, no, like just take care of what you have. Like, why should we spend more money on something if we just take care of it? And so he's his mindset is so much different when it comes to money. Like even the other day we were talking about something, he's like, oh, it's really expensive. And I was like, well, how much is it? And he's like, and in my head, expensive on this certain item was like thousands of dollars. And he's like, oh no, it's only like $200. And I'm like, oh, that's not expensive. So it's interesting, like when your spouse and you see each other on different like levels of what's expensive and what's not, just based on like your history or your background or your childhood.
Yes, so very, very true. I may have shared with you that my husband and I grew up with very, very different parents, so very different money stories, and just noticing that and understanding each other's, you prefaced it by saying how your husband grew up poor. And so there is a level of understanding necessary to help ease whatever friction may come up when you're sharing a life with someone with, certainly a different money background, if nothing else.
Do you think that's why I feel like, when people say spouses fight, I forget, it's like, I know money is one of them, money, sex, and something else. But do you think that's the reason why most marriages have conflict when it comes to money is because of their mindset and how they were raised and, how they feel like how money is important to them?
It's a great question. I think that's one variable. There's two things people say, right? That money is one of the greatest conflict or tension points in relationships, and that people are more likely to discuss their sex life than to discuss money. So when you put the two together, ideally when one is dating and considering sharing a life, you want to sit down and have a conversation. Do you carry credit card debt? Do you have student loan debt? Well, how do you think about money? How do you spend? But that's the last thing you want to talk about, right? It's just not a comfortable conversation. So it's not surprising that communication skills around money are poor because they're not practiced. We don't see our parents do it. It's just not something we're used to. So I think conflicts are inevitable in any relationship. And if there's no ability to communicate and then couple that with judgment, right? You grow up with a certain money story and that person is wrong. That person isn't, it can be, I'm hearing the word combustion. It can blow things up, and that's sometimes why working with a third party, if, one is at the point of considering, if not necessarily combining finances entirely, but sharing a household together, having a non-judgmental third party come in to sort of normalize, look at the situation and normalize it, ask questions, and open channels of communication can be so helpful with money as well as, other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just think about that so much of like how different we see things. And we don't fight a lot about money, I would say, but there's definitely tensions about certain things, but it's like, even just like simple conversations like that. And like, we have very different views of like money and what you'd be willing to spend money on.
So what I'm hearing though, Heather, is that you are talking about it, which is so important to go forward together.
Mm-hmm.
So Heather, you did mention divorce. This is a show for women and listened to by women who are in some sort of life transition or who have come through, as you certainly have. And so I know there's been a number of transitions in your life. Is there one in particular that comes up for you? And I ask you to talk about it and how you came through it.
I think there's two. I mean, you definitely touched on divorce. I think there's been there's actually three. So my first experience around like something hard was, again, going through divorce. I was lucky enough that because I had the hustle mentality, I've always had a job. I've always had a very good career. So I've always known that if the time came up and I needed to get a divorce, I could make it on my own. Would I struggle? Yes. Would it be hard? Yes. But I knew that I wasn't in a situation where I didn't have anything to fall back on. And so when I left my first marriage, we owned a house together, but it was like his family's home. Like we purchased it from his family. And so I didn't want to take that away from him. I didn't want to go to court and try and fight for it. And so I walked away from the house and I literally started over.
Wow.
At the time my dad lived here in our area, and he was living, in a 4-bedroom house by himself. And so, I said, "Hey Dad, can I come live with you with my 2 kids?" And
oh, wow.
Yeah. Cause my kids were 5 and 2, so little. And we just up and moved to my dad's, and it was rough. We shared a room together for a little bit, and, we slowly rebuilt. We had to slowly rebuy things. I walked away with, my stuff, but then like a little bit of the kids' stuff, but I literally walked away from furniture, kitchen stuff. And not because it was a bad breakup, but I honestly knew that there'd be more conflict if we tried to figure out, who's going to do what. We wanted to make it a clean and easy divorce. So we just were like, you keep all this, I'll take what I need, and then we move on. I took my car, obviously. And so that's what I did. Like I spent 2 to 3 years just rebuilding, just living at home. I was lucky enough that my dad let me live there and just saved money. And then it was finally time to rent a little condo. And so I was able to move out. And by that time I had met my current husband. So he also was going through a divorce at the same time when we got together. So we both had very interesting divorce stories, but really started over from nothing. And so we both rebuilt our lives together. And so that's why I'm so appreciative of everything I have now, because again, I worked for this, and this was only like 6 or 7 years ago when this happened. So I'm very proud of where we've come from having nothing to where we are now. So I would say that's probably my biggest overcoming of money, I think, and like knowing that you could be okay.
Yeah.
Then there was a moment, it was probably like it was before my son. It was probably about 3 years ago. I had me and my husband, we got married, and then we had another child. He is now 4. And I was in a job transition. I had left a business and a company that I worked for 12 years. I went to a new company, but it just didn't feel right. It was like one of those jobs where you're like, you felt icky. It didn't feel great. And I just knew I needed to get out. And so I just quit my job without any without another job. And I'm like, what am I doing?
That must have been hard for you, given how you described yourself earlier.
It was like one of those things where I'm like, I either take this risk and leave, and this is my chance to start a business, which is something that I've always been thinking about, or you stay miserable in a job until you find something new. And I was like, I have a really good friend of mine who also owned her own business, and I knew that she needed support. And I said, hey, I really want to leave this job. I think it's time for me to start my business. And she said, come work for me. I'll take you under my wings until you get your business going. And so financially, she obviously supported us, for what we needed at that time. But there was definitely, I wasn't making the same income that I had always had. And at the time, my husband was working, but I've always been the breadwinner, and he's always, of course, had a job, but definitely I'm the one that supported the home financially. And I just remember there was a time, it was in that transition, money wasn't coming in, and there was all these unexpected bills that came up. And there was one day I'll never forget. I went to Taco Bell with my son. Like, I picked him up from school and I'm like, we're going to go to Taco Bell. And there was no money in my bank account. I didn't even have cash sitting in my car. Like, I think I had like $2. And I remember walking into Taco Bell and being like to my son, you can have 2 tacos and mommy's going to have none. And I just remember that moment of being like, something's got to change. Like, this can't be where we sit. We worked too hard to get here. And since then, that was like my motivation to continue to push my businesses forward. Fast forward, I have a consulting business now. My husband and I own a labor business, and now we're thriving. But it was that moment in time where I knew I needed to take control of my life and be able to really work hard to not ever be in that situation again.
Oh, thanks for sharing that story with me. Again, knowing your beginning, your hustle culture that you grew up in and that you've taken on, that must have been very hard and very brave, frankly, to leave one job without another one set up.
I think it's also one of the things that I've learned through those experiences is that, and my husband worries a lot. He's definitely a worry wart. And I'll tell you the third situation that has come up since then, but I'm like, it's going to be okay. So we might be in a little bit of debt for a minute. We might, have to take a little bit of money out of our savings just to get by. But I'm like, this is not where we're going to sit forever. It's just where we are now. And being okay with that. Sometimes it's not always rainbows and sunshines, that it's hard. And sometimes, we might have to, frozen food for a while. We can't go out to eat anymore, and I think you have to make some sacrifices when the time is right. But yeah. I knew in that moment that I'm like, we're never going back here. I don't ever want to feel that way again. And so since then, we've been obviously building. And now my husband, he got hurt back in 2020 at work. And so it was a whole process for him to, try to figure out, does he need surgery? They were trying to, do all the therapy. So he didn't have to, but he finally had to have surgery. It'll be 2 years in December. Mm-hmm. So he's been out of work for 2 years.
Wow.
So that's been another thing like that we're overcoming. Obviously, we get a little bit of money from, workers' comp and state disability and stuff. But like, I've really had to carry the weight in this time because he can't work. He can't even, go Uber drive anywhere. He can't do anything. And so I've been really the one that's having to make sure we pay the bills, make sure there's money in savings, make sure we have jobs on the books to have money coming in. And so I would say over the last 2 years have been really stressful financially for me. It's just making sure like we're good. The family's good. We still, get by. And I'm like, I feel very proud of where we've come. Even since then, to have all of that and to have 2 successful businesses. Like I always feel like things happen for a reason, and you just have to kind of keep pushing through it, even when it's hard.
You are not the sum of your earnings. You are the sum of your yearnings. If you're ready to use wealth to create more freedom and flexibility, let's align your finances with what matters most. Together, we'll build a plan that balances your scarce resources of energy, time, and money, so you move forward with clarity, confidence, and less stress towards a life of true abundance. Learn more at www.trueabundanceadvisors.com and schedule a short conversation.
Right. And asking yourself, I'm sorry to hear this, and asking yourself, what are you learning from this? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you come from this place of sort of faith and trust, but like that the universe wants you to learn something from this.
Agreed. I believe everything happens for a reason. There's always a learning lesson in it. We've been through a lot, between divorces and starting over and, the work thing. But I'm like, we figure it out. I'm like, and so my husband's always the worrywart. He's always like stressing out about it. He's like losing sleep. And I'm like, we're going to be okay. Like, we have money in savings now. We have jobs on the books, and I'm never going to let us get to that point. And I know that he feels the same way, but he just physically can't right now. But once that's like done and settled, like we will continue to thrive. And if something hits us in the face again, then we'll figure it out. But that's, like you said, it's part of the learning.
Yes, and I do think, Heather, that there's always one person in the relationship that takes on the worrying and one person that maybe because your husband's like got that part that takes on the optimism and the belief that everything will be okay. I often wonder about that myself because my husband does tend to be more of a worrier.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he didn't play that role, if I would worry more. But it's not worth asking the questions. You're a partnership and you play a different role. Heather, can you please share with our listeners, so what you mentioned, 2 businesses, it sounds like one in particular is yours. Can you share what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my consulting business is called The Connection Hive. My background has been in hospitality and sales and marketing and business development. And so when I told you about that little transition in my job, that's what I was doing for a company. I was business development for them. And I'm like, how can I have a business where I can do this for multiple businesses and just one? Because I felt a lot of the businesses I've supported, it's not necessarily meant for like a full-time position. So I was like, okay, maybe this is like what I lean into. So now businesses hire me to either help grow their business by doing sales outreaches, connecting them to the right partners, really helping them understand how important relationships are, and how you should be taking care of your clients and like how they engage with them and how frequent. And so that's kind of like what I support those businesses with. And so that's my consulting business.
And
then,
can you say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
solopreneurs, like what,
Oh, that's a great question.
These are sizes or?
I am actually still trying to figure out what my target market is, to be really honest, because with my podcast and I do women's retreats, like I've always wanted to really support women. And so that's what I thought most of my clients would be. But funny enough, it's been men. Most of my clients have been men.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's been kind of like small to medium-sized businesses, I would say, where they're making anywhere from, like 500K to like 5 mil, like kind of sitting in that business bucket. And it's mostly been in the hospitality industry. So like caterers and venues, really anybody who is doing good work but wants to continue to grow, or they want to get into a new market or a new area in our industry. I help them kind of like figure out what that looks like. So that's kind of the people I support. I'm about to take a course where I really dial in what that business looks like, because I've been doing projects that some I love and some I don't love. And so how do I make that a little more consistent? So that one's kind of in transition, but that's what it's been the last couple of years.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And I interrupted you as you were about.
That's really good. My other business. So, like I said, I come from hospitality, in the events industry. And my last job, I was a business development for a rental company. So they provided rentals for events. So like your tables, chairs, tents, any hard goods for an event. And so coming out of COVID, I was like, there was such a need for labor. So rental companies could go deliver, but nobody had any labor as we were, rebuilding our industry. Nobody had the labor to like go set up the tables and chairs, to move the furniture, to support people in that space. And so I was like, maybe this is a company that we could build knowing the relationships that I had in the industry. And then my husband and I met actually through this company. And so he knew like the operations side. He knew where we could get labor. He knew how to do that side of it. And so we're like, let's do this together. And so here we are. I'm kind of like sales. I do sales. I'm like kind of the admin. I'm HR. I'm marketing. I do all of that. And he helps support with like finding, helping to find the labor because that he is not able to work right now. Obviously, he's not on site or doing any of that, but just kind of helping me to support the business as we're continuing to grow. And every year we've like doubled in size. So it's been really great. We just actually got back today from a really big project. It'll be probably our biggest project we've done. And so I'm really excited for that. So again, it's finding the next thing that's going to continue to push us forward and grow our business. That's kind of where we're sitting right now and how we move our businesses forward.
Is there a particular geographic area that second business you described works in? Because the first one, the consulting, sounds like it can be done on Zoom.
Yep.
For sure about the second.
I could definitely reach to other. I mean, I'm very well versed and have a lot of knowledge here in Sonoma County, which is we're about an hour north of San Francisco in California. Mm-hmm. So our labor company is mostly here in Sonoma, Napa County. It's kind of where most of our jobs are. But I have been told people think that I should kind of franchise it out or help people grow develop this business in other areas that host a lot of events, which there are, like Chicago, and there's certain parts of the country that have a lot more events. And so helping others like create a business like this, because it's been very lucrative for us. So I can't complain.
Oh, that's great. Though I'm listening to you and I know you have a podcast. I mean, it sounds like you are quite busy.
And I have 4 kids too.
Oh my God, right. Yeah. So you're definitely a hustler.
I am. And it's so hard because I love doing all of it. I love both of my companies. That's why I struggle so hard is that our labor company, which is Set and Strike, that's obviously where most of our income is coming in. So I want to continue to support that because it's thriving. The consulting business is what I'm passionate about as far as like what my experience is. And so that's what I bring to the table for that business. But I love my podcast. Honestly, if I could get paid every day to interview amazing women like you and like just do that all the time and empower and inspire women, like that's what I want to do. And so I really am trying to focus more on that and how do I grow that and how do I get a bigger audience around that.
I love it. And I think that may be something you and I sort of have in common in that I really just love getting to know new people. I am, I guess, lucky enough to have a business where when I meet people, I can work with them for years and generally do and get to know them and see the changes taking place in their lives. And it's always fun to meet new people. And part of having a podcast lets me have these conversations with women like you and get to be a part of someone's life for a short period of time and see the differences and the similarities. So I often feel privileged to be in this seat.
Or it's just so cool to watch where people's journeys take them, and all of my guests, which I need to like actually figure out the number. I know I'm at like 200 episodes, but I would say a handful of those are my own solo ones. So I would say probably at least 150 women. And I follow all of them on social media and I just love what they're all doing. And, continuing to support them and they support me is what it's all about. And so again, that's why I'm like, this is why I love doing it. I've done it for 4 years and I want to continue to do it. Yeah. So every week for 4 years.
Wow. I'm every other week. And I just got past 100 published podcast interviews and probably have altogether like another 20 that will be publishing over time. And yes, it is really wonderful to have these relationships with so many different women. My husband often says, how do you meet all these people? And I don't even know, right?
That's so true. I was writing a list because I get asked. I mean, when you're a podcaster, when you get to a certain level, people reach out to you to be guests on the show, which is lovely because I don't have to do the research to find the people. But I have a list of people I just need to follow up on, like whether they've inquired and I've sent them the link and they didn't rebook. And I probably have a list of like 25. My husband's like, that could take you into like next year, all the way into next year. I'm like, I know. But yeah, I feel privileged to be at that point where, people want to be on the show. And so I think that's fun and exciting too.
So, Heather, as we're getting towards the end of our conversation, I do like to pose another question, which is, how has your definition of success shifted over time, if it has? And maybe even your definition of financial success?
I know I have more to go. That's something I do know. I know that I'm not where I'm at today is where I want to be. And I don't want to be a billionaire or sit at, in this massive house. For me, I think wealth is all about having money to do things like experiences or to go on vacation, to feel secure if something happens, if someone gets sick and you have the money, or your dog gets sick, or your car breaks down and you're able to fix it because you don't have to scrape by. I would love to get to a point where I'm very comfortable, like in that space, and I'm almost there. I feel like we're getting to the brink of that. I know. I just moved. So where I'm at now, we, 2 years ago, we moved to Windsor because that's where my kids, went to school. So I was commuting all the time and we just moved here. We moved into like an okay house, but then we had this opportunity to rent the house literally right behind us. And I mean, it's like $1 million house, and that's, I feel really special. I don't own it, but I get to live in it, and it makes me proud of the journey that I've taken to get to where we are today. And I'm so proud of that. And my family loves it, and I feel great here, and it just feels, in a great space. But for me, I want to continue to move the needle again, to just be secure. And take more vacations. I would love to be able to take more vacations and gain more experiences with my kids. And so that's something I want to continue to strive. I didn't have that growing up. My parents never took me on vacation.
Wow.
And so I want to change that narrative for me. I think what's been interesting though is how we raise our kids, because my two kids with my ex-husband, I mean, they get everything they want. Even my 4-year-old, you go to the store and he's like, I want this and I want that. And like, we just give. And I'm like, I hope I'm not ruining them for later. But I also think that they all get to see both of their parents working really hard to have the things that they have, and that they appreciate it, and that they will continue to work hard to get what they want, and to thrive. So I think that's always something that's top of mind for me, is like, what am I instilling in my kids that they're going to be able to take through their life?
I love that you think about it, and that through thinking about it are conscious about modeling responsible behavior. And I know it's not easy to do. I'm not saying that I did it, but actually talking to your kids about, how much things cost versus how much you earn, even if you don't give them exact numbers, but so that they start to have a sense. I still remember when my kids were young adults. Now they're all, either side of 30, asking like, how much does this house cost? Like, and I had no idea about money growing up, really very little. I still, my husband told me when we first met, I said like, oh, if I could just earn $25,000, like it was never discussed. And so I just didn't really know what things cost or what income should be or are. And so I think it's important, even if you don't have very detailed conversations when your kids are still young, to just give them a sense. Like, if I buy you, that phone, that's equivalent to working for a month or whatever the numbers are. So they have a sense that it's not, so easy.
They're definitely asking more questions. Like sometimes they'll ask me how much our jobs are, or how much we pay our guys. And, you tell them and they're like, well, that's not very much money. And I was like, that's actually really good money for this area. I'm like, I remember
Right.
minimum wage was like $6 back in the day when I was working for a restaurant. Now it's, I don't know, 20 or something. But it was just so funny because now they're starting to ask the questions, and I'm like, yes, I would love to talk to you about it, or teach you about it. And but they understand, like, if they want things, they have to earn it. And my daughter's now at a stage, she just started high school, like, I'm like, oh, do you have money for this? And she's like, no, I got it. So she knows that, like, saving her money, or when she gets money, that she can put it aside and not have to ask $5, $10, $20, every time she needs money.
Right.
And so she definitely has a more handle on it, but my little guys are still learning through that. So
Yes, and you will find that they will all have different money personalities.
yeah.
Um, I have 3 kids. My daughter she never spent on expensive things, but like, when you're going to the cashier and there's all the little cheap things, she always like wanted everything. And if you gave her allowance, she'd spend it on like fun pencils and could never hold on to it. My youngest son was the opposite. Like if you gave him allowance, I remember being on vacation, we'd say like, you can use your allowance. Like everybody gets this much money to buy souvenirs. And if it was his money, he wouldn't buy anything. But if it's like, oh, you're buying each of us a souvenir, then he would pick like the most expensive thing. But his money, and he's still like that. He will spend at this point, as a soon to be 31-year-old, he definitely spends on experiences. But we laugh when he got his first job, which was a well-paying job, and we went to visit. His living room furniture was folding soccer chairs from Dick's Sporting Goods. Like that was what he bought.
But see, that's where I'm always willing to spend money on, like, going out to dinner, I love going out to eat, and doing experiences like that. I will spend money on that. But I would never buy myself a $200 pair of jeans. Absolutely not. But I would buy a dinner for $200, So it's like,
Right. So you know what's important to you, and
yeah.
what's important to you is relaxing and not having to be responsible for the cooking. I know whenever you go out to a restaurant, you spend more time than when you eat at home. In 2 seconds, you've like eaten and put the dishes away. So I totally get it. Heather, before we wrap up our conversation, is there anything else you want to be sure you share with our listeners?
I feel like we dialed in a lot. I would just say nothing like that we didn't talk about, because I feel like I probably brought up too much that I didn't need to. But
Never.
I think what I've mentioned is just knowing that if you're in a hard situation, that you're going to get through it. And again, it's a hard time, and sometimes you got to be scrappy for a little bit, or you've got to dig into savings, or put yourself into debt a little bit. But like knowing that it's just a moment, and that you can get out of it. And I also believe that, like, everything that I have is because I've worked for it. No one gave it to me. I've worked for it. And sometimes I have a hard time when people are like, oh, I wish I had that, or, I wish I had a better paying job. But then I'm like, then go do it. Like, we have control to continue to push ourselves, or get that new job, or to leave the husband, or, to have a second job to save for. So I think we're really in the driver's seat. And I think people kind of forget that sometimes. And so just a reminder that you can have the life you want, but you've got to put the effort in. It's not going to just magically appear. I mean, some people do, but most of us have to work for it.
I love that. And I'm going to continue to slightly reframe that, because I'm also hearing the self-belief, and the trust that between your energy and, frankly, the universe's energy, it will work out. There's I think it's in a commercial now, and a friend of mine recently said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you are right.
Mm-hmm.
So there is the self-belief that perhaps in a way we can't even understand leads things to work out. Maybe not exactly as we want, but that they will work out. And on the other hand, if you treat your life like you're a victim of it,
Mm-hmm.
there is going to be less energy towards the universe conspiring with you.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. The more that I really have changed my mindset around that, I do, like I mentioned, I go, we put on women's retreats, and even just being in the room and manifesting and dreaming, and I have vision boards. It really truly works.
Yes.
It truly does. And I'm a big believer in that. And so I continue to put that in the forefront of what I believe. And it's crazy the things and the opportunities that open up for you.
I love that. And what a great note to end on. Thank you so much for being my guest, Heather. I will have your contact information, your website, your social media handles in the show notes. And so nice to continue to get to know you.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun having this conversation with you. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Making Change with Your Money. Certified financial planner Laura Rotter specializes in helping people just like you organize, clarify, and invest their money in order to support a life of purpose and meaning. Go to www.trueabundanceadvisors.com/workbook for a free resource to help you on your journey. Disclaimer, please remember that the information shared by this podcast does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. It's for information purposes only. You should seek appropriate professional advice for your specific information.